Welcome to episode 507 of the HaskinCast Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, here with a wonderful returning guest, fresh off of her appearance on the Allison Arngrim Show. And Allison Arngrim is fresh off of her appearance on the HaskinCast Podcast. It's just this really weird repeating triangle that I absolutely love. Laura Pursell is here with her new single, Storyteller. She's going to tell us all about this wonderfully beautiful song that she wrote herself when she used to working with co-writers. So this is really exciting. I'm interested to get into all of this. Let's welcome her to the show, Laura Pursell. Laura, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I got through all that in one breath.
I know, amazing. Lots of oxygen.
I'm learning from Allison how to just keep going.
We are all trying to learn from Allison how to just keep going.
She's amazing. I loved your episode of her show. It was so much fun. She's infectious.
She is. And she's that way 24/7.
Yes. Yes, she is. Love her dearly.
Well, this deep reservoir of energy and infectiousness and joy and passion for all things.
That is the best way I could even think about putting it. But you know who else is infectious is you and your music. I am loving this new single, Storyteller. I'm curious, though, you wrote this alone. Was that something that you set out to do, or did that just kind of happen?
I set out to do it. I got a call from a friend. My sister called and she said, my sister lives in a little town called Centerville, Tennessee, which is the hometown of Minnie Pearl. People know that. They have a big statue of Minnie Pearl in the town square. It's a very small town. She said, my neighbor, Gina, is hosting a singer-songwriter night, and it's part of some big thing with Tennessee Songwriters Week, and she's going to call you to see if you want to participate. And I said, well, I've never done that. I've recorded and I've done shows, but I've never gotten up in front of people and played a guitar or a piano and accompanied myself. And she said, well, just talk to her. I think it'll be really good for you. And I thought about it. And if you know me well, Scott, I never say no. And I thought, well, I'm going to say yes. And then I'm just going to figure it out. So Gina called and I said, I'll do it. And then I'm like, okay, I got to write a song. I have to write a song. So I had a million little ideas on scraps of paper and journals and seeds of ideas. And I sat down at the piano and I wrote Storyteller. And it came out of my experience with someone very close to me who tends to tell himself stories. And the more he imbibes and drinks and hangs out until the wee hours of the morning, the taller the tales get. And then it's like, wow, he actually believes what he's saying. He actually is believing these stories. And this is a pattern. So that's where I started. And all just sort of fell into place. And I wrote it with some very simple chords at the piano. I then went to my piano teacher, Marcine Bella. He helped me find the rhythm for it. And I was terrified when I went to Centerville to perform this song in front of people by myself, playing the piano. And when I went there, I thought, well, this is going to be a little less stress because it's Centerville. It's like nobody knows where Centerville is. I go there and the musicians were amazing. Amazing. This is the hometown of Minnie Pearl.
Well, yeah, you kind of expect that you're going to get some good players out there.
Some really good players. And most of them were on guitar and they were veterans. They had they'd opened up for massive country stars. These were people who heard. And so here I am with my keyboard. And I get up there with my keyboard. And there was only one other woman on keyboard. And she was amazing. Like she plays in her church. Like gospel. Right? And I get up there and I play my little chords. I just thought, oh gosh, well, I'm just going to tell the story. I'm just going to focus on the lyrics. So my actor self kicked in and I focused on the words and I really slowed down and it went well. And I ended up winning the top 2 spots.
Yay.
There were 2 that they chose to move on to the next round. And this is Tennessee Songwriters Week.
Yeah.
This was a big deal. Right. I couldn't believe it. I just about died when they announced my name. Like, oh my, now I really have to do it. Then I have to go to the Franklin Theater and perform in front of hundreds of people.
Wow.
in this legendary space, legendary stage.
You know what, though? You know this as a performer. You can let that get in your head, or you can say, you know what? I know how to perform on stage, and it doesn't matter what that stage is. You'll go out there and do it, and you'll do a beautiful job.
Well, Scott, I wish that were the case. Yes, but but I have never done it while playing an instrument. I mean, that's a whole
Okay.
gum and run at the same time.
Right.
I don't know how I'm going to get through this.
Okay. When is this?
Well, I did it. I already did it.
Oh, you did it. Okay.
I did it, and I recruited a friend of mine. I thought, there's no way I'm going to get up there by myself. I need someone, because you were allowed to bring a band for this particular.
Okay.
And I go up with bands. Mm-hmm. So I've got to put a band together. So I called my friend John Rizzo, and he plays electric bass. I said, I need an upright bass. I need a real rootsy sound on this one. So he rented a bass. He paid like a few $100 to rent a bass.
Wow.
To his house, and we practiced on the upright bass with me on, and of course I was just like a slave driver. I'm like, we got to get every chord right. It's got to, I can't mess this up. I can't mess this up. You need to come in right here. And you can't add an extra note there. It's got to end right here. I became something else. And we'd go to the theater the night of the show, and the enormity of it just hit me as I'm walking the hallways backstage, and I'm seeing these black and white photos of famous people who have performed on that stage.
I call that the Hall of Intimidation.
It was the Hall of Intimidation. And I had my little fold-out keyboard as a little keyboard. Well, everyone else is in the green room, hanging out, playing guitar, doing rounds. I'm by the bathroom playing my chords on my keyboard. This up. And I was in the second half of the show, and it ran late. It was really, really late. I think everybody was exhausted, and they were running behind. But I finally got to play my song, and I did not make one mistake.
Yes.
But I don't think I once looked up from my keyboard.
Well, the most important part is the performance, right? So that's okay. Addressing the audience is always nice, but if you, they'll be happier with a better performance than eye engagement.
I think if I had hired another piano player to do that, and I could have just been out front and really looked at people, it would have been a better performance for me. But it went well, and people loved it. And I didn't win. They only had one winner. That's okay. I climbed that mountain and I did it.
You did it.
Yeah. I went to, I knew I needed to record this. So I went to Stefan Oberhoff, is a very dear friend of mine who lived in LA. We worked together in LA.
Okay.
He moved to Nashville, Fairview, a little bit outside of Nashville, right after I moved here. And I went to him with the song, and he took it. And when I told him what the song was about, it really resonated with him on a personal level, because he had a brother like this. So he just immersed himself in the song, and he added the pump organ at the beginning, and then the dobro. And then and I had this image of a train coming over a hill. It shows up and then it leaves, and it's sort of goodbye. It's like, you want to help this person so desperately, but you cannot. And you have to say, I've done everything I can. I love you. Goodbye. And that's kind of what this is about.
I will say, first of all, congratulations. That's just fantastic. I love that you rise up to these challenges, because that's what pushes us. A lot of times it's just too easy to sit there and get comfortable doing what we do. And unless we have a reason to push ourselves, we probably won't.
Yeah. We have to set goals for ourselves. If I don't have a goal, if I don't set some ridiculously unrealistic goal for myself, I won't try. Right. I may not get there. If I get halfway, I think you have to just try.
Yeah.
Why are we here? Why not?
Right.
Why not? What's the worst that can happen?
Well, that's just it. I mean, if it doesn't come out, you don't put it out, or you maybe bring it to somebody else and go, hey, here's the idea I had. This isn't quite working. What do you see in it? And turn it into something else. There's always value in everything. It's just a matter of how far you're willing to take it. But you're right. Like with each album I do, I try and find something about it that's different. some strategy that I want to go into it with. And I'm already working on planning my next album, and I've kind of got that in mind. And it's going to be really interesting because each album, I really want it to have its own personality. I find with a lot of artists, I don't hear that anymore. In the 70s, if you listen to different albums, even with your dad, like each thing he put out had its own personality, its own character, different studio recordings sounded different. And now it's like every album a band puts out sounds like it was all recorded in the same production.
Yeah, and actually that has been a criticism of a lot of the records coming out of Nashville. Going back to the 70s, there was the Nashville Sound, and there was this group of musicians who performed on all the records, and so they started sounding homogenized. And then, especially in the 80s, when country music really became more rock country, and then everything started to sound the same. I don't think that's so much the case now, but you still have corporate entities. A lot of it is corporate music, and it's formulaic, and it needs to make money. So there's parameters, I guess, that musicians feel obligated to hit, and then it loses its vision. And Dad was so clear about everything he wrote. I mean, I think that's something I really learned from him. Before he sat down to write any arrangement, he had story in mind. He had a very specific visual, almost like a movie. And he would spend hours and hours and hours, and he hand wrote every chart. He tried to get a class on finale and Sibelius. He couldn't do it, gave it up. Yeah, an old school. So he would get out on his card table yellow paper from Judy Green Music, and his brushes and his erasers and his pencils, his rulers and his the tea thing.
The tea square, yeah.
Hand write like Beethoven. Talking about that. Hand write every note. He would hear it in his head. And he had the card table set up by the piano, which is right back here.
Beautiful.
And he would write on the card table, and then he would play the chord, and then he would write on and he would just immerse himself for days, hours upon hours with his cup of coffee. And that's how he would write. And that made his music so special and so cinematic. Musicians here loved working with him, particularly the string players, because they would go into the studio with him and they would say, "Oh my God, thank you so much for giving me something to actually play. This is real music."
Yeah. I will say there is something, I don't know if satisfying is the right word or making you feel accomplished, but there is something about writing music by hand that I don't get when I'm writing it sitting at the keyboard.
Yeah.
There really is something to that.
It's so organic, and I couldn't even begin to do what he did. I have such respect for it now. And, when you're growing up with it, you take it all for granted. Oh, that's just Dad.
Sure, yeah.
Whatever. La, 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 la. Now I go back and I'm looking at all these charts and arrangements he wrote. How did he do this? And I wish I had appreciated it more when he was here, and I could have told him how amazing this was.
And for him, this is just what I do.
It's what he did.
Don't even think about it.
Yeah.
I love that you did the same thing, though. You started with your story concept. Here's what it's going to be about. And then you moved on to it musically. I think you created the right musical environment for the story. I think the tempo is exactly where it needs to be. And I'm not saying this because you're my friend. Like when I heard the song, I really immediately, I'm like, great tempo for this kind of song. Because if it's any faster, you're starting to lose the story a little bit. If it's any slower, you're losing the listener. Like it's just sits right where it needs to be.
And I have major props to Stefan Oberhoff for finding that correct tempo, because I have a tendency to rush. My dad did too. It's you get really into something and you tend to pick up, before you know it, you're speeding up. Yeah. And he got in that beautiful muted percussive beat at the beginning, and you hear the train coming over the hill, and it sets it up beautifully. And I love the beginning so much with the pump organ.
Yes.
We had a longer intro and I submitted it to a radio promoter, and she said, "Yeah, the intro is too long. I don't know if radio is going to want to hear an intro that long, and you get this long outro. I'm curious to hear it when you shorten the intro. And then I don't like this other thing that you do in the middle." Okay.
Is she a producer now?
I'm like, "Okay, I didn't ask for your opinion. I just wanted to know if you were interested in promoting it." She has a point. Maybe she has a point. This is what she does for a living, right?
Yeah, okay.
Back to Stefan, I said, we might want to consider shortening the intro a little. So we shortened the intro a little. And I said, now she also doesn't like this thing that we do in the middle. And he said, you know what? We're just going to pretend we didn't hear that.
Well, okay. You could have your single version that is radio friendly, that has the shorter intro. And then you could have your album version that displays the song the way you want to play it, right?
I do. I'm so glad you mentioned that. You were so brilliant. I have two versions.
Yes.
The longer intro is going to be with the video, which we are creating the video right now.
Oh, good.
Radio version has a slightly truncated intro with the pipe organ, but it's still beautiful. And you've heard it, the pump organ, not pipe organ, the pump organ.
Pump organ, yeah.
And that's what listeners will hear.
Mm-hmm.
Release the video, they will hear the longer version. But I was not willing to change it beyond that. I believe, and normally, Scott, I am so flexible. I'm like, yeah, sure, if you need it. No. This is what it is. And if you don't like it, you don't have to play it.
The thing is that everyone's going to have an opinion. You know, they're going to say, oh, instead of the pump organ, you should try this, or you should do that, or you should put a violin here. You know, there's always going to be somebody telling you something.
Always.
At the end of the day, this is your song. And it's good to listen to feedback and decide, did I maybe lose perspective? And like listen to everything that people have to say. But then at the end of the day, you have to decide whether it does make the song better or not. Yeah.
And I truly believe there is nothing about this song, about this recording that I would change.
I would make the intro longer than what I heard. I love too the choice to use brushes instead of sticks on the drums. I thought that was great. And am I hearing a washboard in there as well?
There's no washboard. There's no washboard. That's him with the brushes on, and then you're hearing, and then he added some percussion. No washboard. Interesting.
I thought I heard some, like right where the music kind of stops and it just kind of rings out a little bit. I thought I heard a little bit of scratching on something.
Okay, well, he may have added that in. He has a million, there's so many wonderful things that you can do now on with plugins.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that might be a plugin that he put in.
It could be, yeah.
For that. He might have.
I'll find the spot and tell you where it is in the song, and then you can tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, let me know.
Yeah.
Because we definitely were going for an Americana, rootsy, cool vibe on this. And of course, he elevated it into this just cinematic piece. I'm really curious to hear what people think when they hear it. And how it works, because what I wrote may not necessarily be what people interpret.
Well, very true. And that's the beauty of music, though. Even when you have lyrics, it's not necessarily what the songwriter intends for the song. It's what the listener gets out of it, what memories it triggers, or just their interpretation of the lyrics, their mood that they get from the music. There's so much. And that's one of the things that in general, I write instrumental music. One, because I find it impossible to find a singer that can follow through and actually get the recording done. But two, because I like the fact that it's just open-ended. That you can, I might write it about, the idea of swimming in the ocean and all these beautiful tropical fish that I see and that sort of thing. And somebody else might think about just sitting on the beach and watching the tide come in. And somebody else might think about flying through the clouds. And it's beautiful that art can be interpreted so many different ways, even when you have a story. But I will say the way that this is portrayed in this song, I felt this, even before I heard your interview on Allison's show, I felt this was a very personal story for you. It felt very personal in the delivery.
Thank you. It was very, very specific. Every single lyric came from personal experience. Mm-hmm. There is nothing in the song that was extrapolated from, it was actually truthful writing. Mm-hmm. This is what I'd take all those scars and I'd burn them, help you wipe the slate clean. But
Yeah.
I would do anything to help you. I would do anything to help you. And
Yeah.
old memories poisoned your sweetness, and whiskey made your heart mean.
I love that. And you really feel for, I don't know if this is the right way to phrase it, for the character singing the song, because yes, it's you, but I always think of a song as you're playing a character, because a lot of times they're not personal stories. They're delivered as personal stories, but they're completely made up. So I tend to think of the vocalist as the character in the song telling the story. You really feel for that though, because you can tell that this is something that you've really struggled with, that has hurt you, that you felt that desperation, and the desperation comes through so beautifully in the delivery of the lyrics that I just like, I wanted to fly out and hug you.
Thank you. You've just articulated it so much better than I can. Hard for me to really talk about this song in a way that that doesn't feel like I'm feeling sorry for myself, or I don't know if I should say too much, because this person is still very much around, and I don't, but I thank you, thank you. I think people have to hear it and come to their own conclusions. But I can say that it came from a very, very personal, very specific place.
Yeah. And I don't know exactly what kind of stories they told, but I think we've all had that person that we've interacted with at some point where, well, the last time you told the story, the fish was only 12 inches long and now it's 2.5 feet. Is this the same fish? Is this a different fish? Every time the story gets bigger and bigger. And at some point you just kind of want to call shenanigans and go, you're being ridiculous.
The stories it's always someone else's fault. Like every bad thing that happened to you in your life is someone else's fault. And here's why it was someone else's fault. And here's what you did to make my life horrible. And here's what he did to make my life horrible. And it's, I'm a victim. Like, oh boy, here we go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I've definitely experienced my share of that with people. And I would say to those people, you have to find an appropriate way and time, or know that you don't need to say it because it's not going to matter. But if you start just looking at the situations that you're in and you realize your role, whether it be the decisions you made or the fact that you acted on impulse or because you were afraid of something, or like whatever caused you to make the decisions that led you to these results, you'll find that a lot of it just comes down to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can't change people. You cannot change. And with this particular person was enabled his whole life by everyone around him.
Yeah.
Maybe even me, and you get to the point where you just have to say enough. I have to pull back. No longer be a participant. I cannot help you do this. I can't allow this. I have to leave.
Well, and that's sad, you have to take care of you.
It's acceptance. Yeah. And it's self-preservation.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard.
It is, because you care about the person, but at the same point, like, you can care about somebody from a distance.
Yeah.
And sometimes you have to. It's a hard decision, but sometimes you have to, for the best of both of you, because if you're not able to help them, then you could be doing just as much damage by not helping them, or having to dance around things in your conversation so that you're not put in a position to say something. There's a subconscious uncomfortableness to a relationship that it's there whether it's in the foreground or not.
Yeah. Again, you've articulated this so
well, let me ask you, you don't have to answer this question. I don't want you to feel like you have to, but I'm curious, because I find in writing about things that are particularly upsetting to me, I find that sometimes it helps to just get it out, whether it's in song or just write. Did this help you? Did you find it therapeutic?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Absolutely. And I'm a big journaler as well. I write journals. I write my thought when I'm really frustrated and I need to just process something. I type it. I type it into my computer. I just get all of it out, get all of it out. And every time I do, there's some little kernel or nugget in there that would make a great song. Even if I'm not really thinking about writing a song, I just need to process it verbally for myself and make my thoughts heard on paper to myself.
Right.
And then I can process it in a way where I can get through it. Can't deal with issues by circling them. You have to get through it. You have to get through it. And I think writing it down is such a great way to accomplish that.
I agree. And just getting it out of your system, a lot of times you'll get clarity on things. You can, whether you're saying it out loud, whether you're writing it or typing it, just getting it out of you a lot of times can bring clarity.
Yeah, uncensored, everything.
Yes.
Everything.
Yeah.
Every bit of anger, every doubt, every ugly things, just get it out, get it out, write it down.
And be honest about it.
Be honest with yourself. I think that is really, really therapeutic. And I've been doing a lot of soul searching about this person for years. Yeah. And this was, I'm really glad that something positive came out of it and that I was able to create a little piece of art about it.
Sure.
Hard thing to write about. And I'm not the only one. I think everybody has somebody like this in their life.
Oh, absolutely. But how many times have you said to somebody, or maybe somebody said to you, let me run something by you, or let me tell you what's going on. I need to make a decision. And by the time they get halfway through explaining it, they're like, you know what? I figured it out, because they just finally got it out of their system. They got it out of their head and into something where they could kind of separate themselves enough to be able to see it a little more clearly.
Yeah, absolutely. You arrive. Just the process of making those connections and verbalizing it. All of a sudden, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
Absolutely. Now, I have to say the mix on this song as a very opinionated audio engineer, put it that way. I think the mix on this song is fantastic. There's nothing I could say, you know what, when you do it for the album, maybe try this or that. I would not change a thing. I think it's perfect.
It's magical. I just, again, Stefan, and the guy is just he is such a genius. He worked with Quincy Jones, Brenda Russell, Jason Gould, Melissa Manchester. He does all of Melissa Manchester's. So he's definitely kind of got an old school approach to mixing. He's from Germany originally, a little town outside of Cologne, Germany, but he's been in the States for decades, and he has gotten he was brilliant when I met him, but now he collects things. He's such an artist. He just collects ideas, and he sat down. We did a show last night, and there was a magician on stage. It was a variety show. A magician was doing some things, and he goes, he needs some background music. So Stefan sat down at the piano and started doing, what do you need? What do you need? And the guy goes, I need intimacy. He goes, okay. So he starts playing intimacy. And then he says, can I get an audience member in the crew down here? I need a volunteer. And so he provided the background music for that. And I'm like, where is all this sitting in your head? Is this just stuff that you have in little drawers in your brain? You just open the drawer. Intimacy, suspense.
There are people that are just born to be performers. My friend Martin, who was a Jerry Lee Lewis impersonator, and a very good one. He was part of the $1 Million Quartet in Vegas. And I worked with him on a play. I was the audio engineer on a play that he wrote the music for. Beautiful play. And I would go see him at the Dueling Piano Bar, where in the afternoons it would just be him by himself. And he would say, just to the audience, what do you want me to play? And whoever picked whatever song, he would just pull up on his little iPad, he would pull up the lyrics and he would find his own way to play that song.
Incredible.
Somehow giving like the original song, which he must apparently know every song that was ever written. And he would be able to do it with respect to the original, but also do it his own way. I'm like, this guy, that's all you were born to do, was be a performer. And you are so damn good at it.
And a lifelong study of all of those songs, and to learn all of those songs. And a lot, you can learn certain chord progressions are pretty common throughout a lot of songs, especially the jazz standards. But you have to know the lyrics. You have to know what the song is about, the story behind the song. And that is a lifelong endeavor, I think. Sit down and do that. That's just incredible. I know a lot of songs from doing jazz gigs in LA for all those years. And I worked with so many amazing men, people who played with Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr., these guitar greats who taught me so much. They were encyclopedias. They spent their entire world and since childhood learning all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And then they also knew every Beatles tune, every song by the Beatles. They also knew, Rolling Stones. They knew all the hits from the 70s. And I just think it's a lifelong passion. I just admire that so much.
Well, they lived it and breathed it. It was their whole day and their night. They would record in the studio in the day. They would go perform at shows at night, and that's how they made their living.
And it's all about music.
Mm-hmm.
Probably couldn't balance a checkbook to save their lives, but they knew everything.
I was just talking about that. I don't remember where it was. I think it was on my other podcast. I do a podcast on Deep Purple where I'm going through every song they ever recorded, and like I did with Uriah Heep, which is what I was doing when I first met you.
Yes.
I was talking about the athlete Bo Jackson, who was really big in the 90s. He played football, he played baseball, and like professionally, like normally most people play one sport. And I thought about that, and I'm like, okay, so he's this great athlete. He can do multiple professional sports, but can he do basic things like tie his shoes, tell time? You wonder, people that are that specialized, are they completely inept in other parts of their lives, or can they really do everything?
I don't think they can do everything. I think life is ultimately about some sort of balance. And I think if you've got all this, talent up here, something else is going to suffer down here.
Yeah.
It's get right here.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was certainly that way. He was definitely not a businessman.
Yeah. Well, that's
decisions.
That's the tough thing now, because as artists, we're supposed to know how to do everything, and we're just supposed to be good at being business people and merch designers. And it's not just about everything. It's not just about being a musician anymore. If you want to be successful, you have to know everything.
Scott, that's so true. Even releasing this single, I had to force myself to learn things that I was not comfortable learning because I didn't have a publicist helping me this time. So I literally created the album artwork. I learned how to go on a program called Canva, which apparently everyone knows how to do except for me.
And me. I've never used it, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
It rocks. I mean, it's a whole thing, and it's user friendly. There's a lot that I still need to learn about it, but I learned how to do that. I learned how to use AI to create the image for the album cover. Mm-hmm. I've never used AI in my life, but I was able to go on to Chat GPT or whatever it was and say, I knew what I wanted. Mm-hmm. I need a bourbon bottle and a glass that's knocked over and it's half empty. And it needs to be on a screened-in porch, and it needs to be rainy outside.
And 4 seconds later, you got 2 options of, do you want this one or that one?
That's it.
Yep.
That's it. And I just put a filter on it. And then I went into Canva, and I added the typeface. And like within 2 hours, less than 2 hours, I had my album art. And I said, oh, I love your album art. And like, it was, I don't know.
You know what, though? It's AI is doing the drawing, but you're directing what the artwork is. So it's not like you said, AI, give me a great album cover. Here's the story of the song or whatever. You knew what you wanted. So you really created it, and you just used that as a tool. Like I would, a plug-in to play violin, which I cannot play. Well, let me correct that. I can make sounds on a violin. Whether those sounds are pleasant or not, that's a whole other issue. But I think it's okay to use AI in that way, because you're not saying, AI, write me a song.
Right. Oh gosh, no. No.
I have used AI a little bit on my podcast. I told you earlier, I'm actually working on doing a review of Mozart's Requiem. I promised my listeners I was going to get into Mozart. So I had it help me figure out which parts Mozart wrote and which parts his finisher wrote. So I got that, and I got the graphic that I'm using for the promo, because there's no pictures of Mozart I could license or anything like that, because there's no pictures of Mozart.
That's right. But AI is a fantastic tool, because really it's an algorithm. It's a conglomeration, or I don't know what the right word is, of all the information that has been learned up until this point. That is still being gathered. So you're drawing from a well pool of research and ideas that have already been formulated. So it's not really artificial. They You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's based on lifetimes of research and lifetimes of knowledge.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. Now, I don't know how it was able to create this beautiful image for me. I don't understand it well enough to explain that,
Well,
but
it's
it
gotten better.
it's
Um,
gotten
and it'll still do this every once in a while because my friend Nate, he does things for his podcast, and it will give people 6 or 7 fingers, a hand coming out of their shoulder. It does some messed up stuff. But what you're doing is, you're using it in a way that's really assisting. I don't really have a problem with that. I have a problem with people that are like, write me a country song, and it will come like that. Is just that
not
I
out of
have
your
a hard time with.
something that no, no.
We have enough things to compete with and enough difficulty trying to run our lives as musicians and make it successful than to be competing with that kind of thing.
Now come up with your own original idea for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah,
I mean, a lot of
always.
people use AI musically to come up with melodic ideas as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah.
Um, you can do that. I did not. I
Well, it's challenged me too. It said things like, if you ever want me to give you my opinion on your mix, you can always upload your song. And I'm like, oh, can I? Really? Don't know how. I might do that as an experiment with something. Like I might write something specifically to see what it finds, or I might mix something kind of muddy to see what it tells me to do. Because I'd be curious, but at the same time, I'm like, wow, I would not have expected it could do that kind of stuff.
right. I mean, you can use it, gather information, see what comes up.
Yeah.
It's a tool,
Mhm.
try it, but see what happens. But I think for a piece of art, something that's personal, like a song or a piece of writing or a lyric, our brains have so much already that we
Yeah.
don't even access.
Well, and I've challenged it on that a little bit too, saying, well, you're telling me words like I feel and I think and I would imagine, and like, how human are you? And it'll say, well, I use those words because that's what you identify with. I can't feel like you can. And it'll be very clear about that. But one time I said, tell me the truth. I know that giants once existed on Earth, didn't they? And it started right. It wasn't Chat GPT. I don't remember which one it was. It was one of those, language things. And it started to write out this whole thing about how, yes, it's true. There was once, and it started to give me details. Then it wiped everything away. And it said something about, yes, this is a conspiracy theory that's been ongoing for some time. And I'm like, what happened to all the stuff you were starting to tell me? And now you're not. I'm like, that's fascinating right there.
This in real time, this happened,
In
like
real
while
time.
with AI
Yeah.
changed its mind.
It changed its mind. It completely wiped out what it was typing and gave me just that generic, haha, it's conspiracy theory answer. And I was like, that's fascinating to me. Because the thing is that this is all stuff that's hand fed. They don't give it access to the internet and say, go, because there's so much garbage on the internet. So they have to curate what they want it to know. So
Who are
somewhere somebody put that in, well, whoever the programmers are. But anyway, I thought the whole thing was fascinating, but I don't have a problem using it for that kind of stuff. But when people are using it to write things for them and then trying to release, that's where it really gets into, I have issues with that because I'm a creator. I have enough to compete with.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. But I guarantee it happens all the time.
So I have to apologize to you because I really wanted to have you on to promote your Christmas album. And I had it written down. I'm like, you need to get a hold of Laura. And then it was February.
Okay, because guess what? Christmas is coming up.
I want you to remind me when maybe in November or December that we need to have you back on to do your Christmas album next year.
Love that because you know what? I actually wrote that a little too close. It's a little late in the season, too close to Christmas to actually get the promotion together that we needed. We
Yeah.
tried. Really, I should have written that song back in no later than May or June of that year. I didn't get it, I
Yeah.
believe, until late September, early October. So we were already behind the 8 ball. By then, people already had their playlists
Mhm.
set. And I probably should start thinking about that now.
Yeah.
was June. So it's a really great song. Again, this was co-written with Stefan. It's his production. The Scott Hamilton Skating Club chose it as their big number for their finale in the Christmas show. It's amazing to watch all these skaters skating to my music.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people said it sounds like it could be the theme for a show on Netflix.
Ooh.
Yeah, it sounds like a theme song for a Christmas show on Netflix or the Hallmark Channel or, one of those networks. So just putting it out there if anybody needs a theme song.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody could write it, write the script.
Maybe they should listen to the song and then go, okay, now I got to come up with a show because I need to use this song in something.
Yes. And the story is about coming home for Christmas. It's about coming home and being away for a long time and really hoping that the person on the other side of the gate will open it. And you don't know. They might not. You've been gone a long time, but it's Christmas Eve. The song is called 3 Miles from Christmas Eve.
I like that.
I'm coming. Please open the door.
Have you thought about doing a whole Christmas album?
Well, I did a Christmas album back in 2000. And that was an incredible experience. It was a lot of the guys that I worked with are no longer with us. I was a new singer. I was kind of green, but it was a great album. It's called That's What Christmas Used to Be. Title track my father was on and he arranged it. I would love to do another one. When I did 3 Miles from Christmas Eve, we went back and remastered a handful of those tracks from the 2020 recording and we released it as an EP.
Okay.
And I do have that. It would be interesting to create new material.
Yeah.
That would, or do some new recordings. There's so many songs out there. It's like, does the world really need another Christmas song? But that might be something to consider.
I think we need new Christmas songs. I think we need new stuff because I mean, I did a Mental Sauna Christmas album of, obviously public domain Christmas tunes from the past. And that's all well and good, but I think we need new stuff. We need new things to be,
I agree.
Be part of our generation of Christmas for the future.
Yeah, I don't need to hear Silver Bells one more time.
Yeah.
There are no silver bells. Nobody goes around ringing silver bells.
Right.
It was just, chestnuts roasting on an open fire. Gorgeous. Heard it 50 million times.
Yeah.
Beautiful tune. One of the most gorgeous tunes ever written. But we need another one of those.
Or the 12 Days of Christmas. 3 days in, I'm like, nobody's buying these gifts for anybody.
No.
If you were the person receiving all of those animals, I think you would probably just get rid of that person from your life.
That would be an interesting exercise would be to take that song and substitute actual things that people would buy and collect now.
There you go.
You could do that. And that song, I believe, is in the public domain.
It is. Yeah. And how long were these geese a-laying? I mean, how long can you do that? You got to get up and do something every once in a while.
12 geese a-laying. Is it 12? How many geese a-laying?
Oh, I think it's only 6.
6 geese a-laying.
Well, still.
7 lords a-leaping. Lords a-leaping.
Yeah. I mean, how much energy do you have that you can just keep doing that all day?
Collect lords. They're leaping over my bushes in the backyard. I keep them and they bring them out every Christmas for the song.
They're like what was that? Was it in The Simpsons or was it National Lampoon's Vacation where they were like no, it must have been something in The Simpsons. Oh, where they were like Australia, America, where they were at the line where the embassy was. I'm like, that's what those guys are doing. They're like this side of the bush, that side of the bush, this side of the bush, and that's all they're doing. They serve no purpose. There's no value in leaping for no reason.
There's none. None. I think we need to substitute these gifts.
Yeah.
Love gave to me 12 gifts, and they need to be legitimate gifts that are, understandable.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to really consider the numbers part of it because what could you need 12 of in today's world?
Eggs, eggs still expensive?
Well, yeah, that would be a good Christmas gift. Yeah, I would go with that.
Pairs of shoes, mascara.
There you go.
Yeah, just things toothpaste.
Yes. necessities these days. I mean, you could go like 12 rolls of paper towels would probably be something. I mean, think about during the pandemic, the way that people were fighting over those kind of things like toilet paper and Kleenex and
Towels. I hear it.
yeah. But yet the vitamin C was left untouched on the shelves. I loved that.
The vitamin C that was left untouched on my shelves.
No, so the day that we had the lockdown, my last day of going to work in a corporate office, I thought I better stop at the grocery store on the way into work and pick up a few things. And I noticed when I walked in that the napkins, the paper towels, the Kleenex, all gone.
Yes.
I walked over to where the orange juice was, which is full of vitamin C, which you think might be a good thing to have during a health crisis. Stocked full.
No one touched it.
No one touched it. I walk over to the pharmacy section, all the vitamin C, plenty to take.
Wow.
And I'm like, we're not going to make it.
Vitamin C wards off infection.
Right.
And immunity. You would think of all the things that you would need to have. It would be vitamin C.
Yeah. You know what doesn't save you from an infection is paper towels.
It does not. Cleans up.
Just cleans up. Yeah.
Step. And by the way, you could use rags for that.
Very true. An old shirt. Anything you got?
Last I checked, water was in abundance. We could wash.
Absolutely. Oh, you know what? Speaking of the pandemic, interesting thing I learned about you listening to Allison's show is you may very well have been the last performer in California before the lockdown.
I mean, I don't know for sure, but I would love to find out if I wasn't. Prove me wrong. Prove me
because
wrong.
They actually closed the bar while you were performing.
I set.
Yeah.
While we were on stage. And I knew that there was a pandemic going on. I was following it, but I had no idea that it was that close to California. Mm-hmm. New York was having, all the tragedy that was happening in New York. It was a matter of time before it came to California. But we had absolutely no idea. I must have been living under a rock. But Allison was sitting right there at the table with Bob and Stephen Wishnoff. They came to hear me, and I was shocked that they walked in because not many people were going out at that point.
Right.
Like, well, show must go on. We've got a show. Viva Cantina. And sure enough, they were there, and Stephen was on his phone reading all the updates, and he said, "I think you're going to have to stop singing." And I was like, "Why? We're not done." And he said, "Well, at midnight, they're going to. There can be no more. People need to go home. People need to go home." Wow. And it was really sad. And at the time we thought, well, this will be for 3 months.
Yeah.
And Viva Cantina closed down, never opened up again.
Which is so sad.
It was so sad. And that very day I had lost my dear friend, Barry Zweig. He died in the hospital. He was my guitar player. Oh. He had Crohn's disease and he was suffering from a myriad of complications. So I had gone to see him that day, and I knew he was going to leave soon. And the last thing he said to me was, "I'll see you on the other side."
Oh.
And I was just destroyed, and I was going to cancel the gig. And I thought, no, Barry would want me to do my gig. It's the stage where we used to perform. Right. I need to finish. I need to do this gig. So I go to the show. I dedicated a song to him, "Shooting Star," the Bob Ditlich I recorded.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And right after that, we got the news that the whole city was shutting down. And I took a picture of the placard that they had outside with the date. It was March 17th, 2020. It says Laura Pursell, Chris Ross, and all the guys. And that was it. That was the last gig.
Wow.
And then I came here and to Nashville, and I never had that was the end of an era. That night.
See, and I rely so much on my sarcasm during uncomfortable situations. And I think I probably would have responded if he said to me, "See you on the other side." I probably would have said, "Is that a threat?"
You'll get here soon enough.
Yeah. When? Do you know when?
Do you know when?
Yeah. Oh, speaking of loss, I should mention a shout out to Loretta Swit. As we're recording this, she just passed away yesterday. Yeah.
She wasn't sick. She wasn't sick. Did you know that Harlan had a conversation with her the night before?
No, I didn't know that.
He had called him. Harlan is our publicist and dear friend. Loretta Swit called Harlan, asking him how he was doing, checking in on him because he lost his house in the Altadena fire.
Right.
I'm going to send you something. What is your new address? So he gave her his address. The doorman saw her go downstairs and put something in the mail slot at 4 a.m. Hours later, she was found dead.
Isn't that amazing?
And I texted Harlan right away, and he said, we knew she had a little bit of a heart issue, but we never thought it was that serious. And I'll bet you anything, heart disease is a silent killer of women.
Yeah.
A lot of us get higher cholesterol as we age. And I'm wondering if, she just had something lurking there that she didn't know about. My sister did. My sister is only 10 years older than I am. She has had open heart surgery.
Wow.
And from cholesterol, apparently her widowmaker, whatever it's called a widowmaker for a reason.
Right.
It was like 70 or 80% blocked.
Wow.
And they need to come in right away. And she had a bypass. Mm-hmm. Now she has an aneurysm that's sitting in her heart that she has to watch very closely. So, and to look at her, you wouldn't think that there was anything wrong, you know?
Well, and think about how many athletes, people that are just, they're training all the time and they just go out for a light morning jog and they keel over of a heart attack. You really never know.
Yeah. That's why you have to get your cholesterol checked.
Yeah.
You have to be on top of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know Loretta what her situation was, but it clearly was just an absolute shock.
Well, and I know that she didn't eat meat because she was an animal rights activist, very heavily so. So she wasn't eating like a lot of red meat or anything like that, which is a pretty common cause of blockage.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
For her age, good heavens. Mm-hmm. The last time I saw her was at the book signing at the Hollywood Museum. Mm-hmm. And we all gathered to promote her book signing.
Right.
And about animal activism. Mm-hmm. And I had broken my foot and I had a big boot on. And Allison, you'll see in the picture, she's propping me up. I literally couldn't stand. So I'm like, in the picture. And there's Loretta Swit looking just gorgeous. Mm-hmm. And that was in 2017. Yeah. I just can't believe she's gone. It just seems like yesterday.
I only got to interview her one time. And that was back on, that was June of 2020. So that was episode 110. You guys can go back to that. It's on my website. I have all the interviews listed in alphabetical order. But 110 is the number. And God, this is 507 already. It doesn't seem like it was that long ago I interviewed her, but yeah.
Busy, my friend.
I am. But she was so delightful. And, she felt bad because after we were done recording the show, we talked for a few minutes after, and she felt bad because we didn't get any MASH questions in. And so she said, well, I'll come back on. And I talked to Harlan about it, and we were waiting for her, her new project to launch. And he goes, well, she can come back on your show then and you can promote the project. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's perfect. And of course that, didn't happen, but I just found her to be so delightful and wonderful. And the things that she was doing to make this world better were just amazing. And I really hope that her work continues on because it's very important work. And we went really in depth into it. And I admired the hell out of her for what she was focusing on.
What episode was that again? What was the number on that?
110.
10. Okay. I want to go back and watch that.
I'll send you the link because it's I've got a link on my website for all the interviews, and I could just send you the link to it. Where's my pen?
So special. And I can't even believe it's so ironic because when I was on the Allison Arngrim show just a few days ago, we talked about Loretta Swit.
Yeah.
I said, Allison, do you remember you were propping me up and held me up for that group photo? And then 2 days later, passed away. I just, wow, can't even believe it. I cannot believe it.
And I think about, and I'm sure I've only touched the surface of what she's actually accomplished in her life. But I mean, she's reunited so many animals with the soldiers that they were in combat with. She's entertained so many people. She was part of the biggest series finale in television history that still to this day, you can't get through without a bucket for your tears. I mean, it's just
the kiss.
I mean, all those episodes that were just like I said about your song, you just wanted to reach through the television and hug her and let her know that it was okay to not be, this I'm in charge and I have to be, basically like the male role model for all of these people and have to be tough and all that. And when she had those moments where she was allowed herself, her character allowed herself to be vulnerable, like you just saw so much humanity in that. And every episode was so powerful when she allowed her, when her character was allowed.
One episode, that one scene where she is crying and she's talking to the nurses and she said, "Not one time have you ever offered me a cup of coffee."
Yes.
And they say, "Well, we didn't think you would have taken it."
Mm-hmm.
Well, again, whatever she said. And
it was that one. And I remember the one where she had been secretly feeding scraps to the stray dog that had come to the camp, and the dog had got hit by a car or a Jeep, been run over by a Jeep. And she was trying to hide how upset she was. And she stormed out of the mess tent, and Hawkeye was complaining about something, and he realized that she was upset. And finally she had just admitted it and let it out. And all this just came pouring out of her. I'm like, how as an actor do you do that? That is amazingly talented acting right there.
oh my God. I wonder how much Gene Reynolds had to do with that. He was the executive producer. Did he direct all those episodes?
I think he did. I want to say he did, but I could be wrong, but I want to say he did.
Gene Reynolds was in my acting class at Beverly House. In his 90s, he was coming to class with his little notepad and his pencil, and he would take notes. Every time somebody got up to a scene and during the critiques, he would take notes. This little man, he was the sweetest, most legendary guy. And he directed Loretta Swit. That MASH was one of his masterpieces.
Mm-hmm.
I just was so honored to get to know him and talk to him. And
wow.
My scene work. And I've been so blessed
to be exposed to people that they know what they're doing.
Oh yeah. And in LA, they were all there.
Mm-hmm.
They were all there. And I miss that. I miss that part of LA.
Yeah.
I don't miss living in LA, but
right.
I do miss the access that I had to all these incredible legends. And so many of them are gone now. And a lot of the musicians I worked with, they were all old enough to be my grandpa, some of them. And, they're so I have so many beautiful memories, and I'm just making new ones here in, and never say never. I might go back. You don't know.
That's true. I mean, life, I never thought I would be living in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I just never, if you'd asked me when I was 20, hey, how long do you think it'll be before you end up in Tulsa? I would have just gone, that's the most random thing you could ever bring up.
Tulsa, do you like to?
I haven't seen that much of it, to be honest. Before I left Vegas, I realized that I didn't need a car anymore. So I just sold it and I walk everywhere that I need to go. So I've seen 2 blocks of Tulsa really, really well. That's about it so far.
How long have you been there?
I think I moved here in November.
Oh, this is new.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm in the studio all the time. If I'm not working on a soundtrack or a piece of music, I'm doing a podcast or, I'm
anywhere now. I mean, really. Even as an actor, you can live anywhere because guess what? All the auditions as a result of COVID, and this is stuck, most of them they're virtual auditions.
They are. Yeah.
Which I hate because there's nothing like having somebody in the room. I just think you miss so much humanity in that.
I learned a long time ago that, these Zoom relationships are great. But at least being in a room with a person one time has a huge impact on then the way every meeting you have, every phone call, every, face-to-face over the internet meeting becomes different because you've been in a room with somebody and you've experienced the real energy that they have.
And there's nothing like doing an interview live in person. Remember those old interviews, Barbara Walters or Dan Rather, whatever. There's a chair and they're sitting together and you can read body language and you can actually so much more interaction going on. It's hard to duplicate that or create that on a Zoom call. Although you are such a good interviewer, I feel like you're sitting in front of me. I do. I'm not just saying that. That's why this is really probably one of my favorite podcasts to be on.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me.
It's a real conversation, and I feel like you're right. Well, you are right in front of me.
I am. Yeah.
next best thing to having you here.
Well, and I know with Harlan as your publicist, you do a lot of interviews, so that means a lot to me.
Yeah, you've always stuck out in my mind as being so fun to talk to, and it's just we end up talking about things we hadn't planned on talking
Yeah,
about.
it happens. Yeah.
Conversation.
And and I have to say, through all of this too, you're still ice skating because
Yeah,
you've got plenty of free time. But I'm wondering, now that I was thinking about it, I would imagine that you do that more in the earlier part of the day. You wouldn't go from like ice skating to the stage, right? Because that's going to have an impact on your voice.
right. Well, it's funny you should say that.
Oh.
I do. I get up at 5 or 5:30. I teach. I coach.
Mhm.
So I'm on the ice most days, Monday through Saturday, um, before 7 to be at 6:15. I'm
AM.
trying to a.m.
AM.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. And then I'll come home. Sometimes I'll take a nap, regroup, and then I head across town to another rink in Bellevue, which is on the south side of town, west side of town. And I teach from about 2 o'clock until 6. So I have gaps, but by 6 o'clock, I got to tell you, I am so tired.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just crash.
Mhm.
So if I have a big gig coming up or a show, I will cancel my late afternoons just to save my voice.
Right.
But the midday, if I'm not too exhausted, I'm right at that piano and I'm practicing, you know,
Yeah.
trying to work and writing.
Mhm.
So it's a good life for me. I never would have had this opportunity in LA. I was
Yeah.
scrounging so hard just to make ends meet and pay the mortgage and sitting in a cubicle at a law firm.
Mhm.
I was just miserable. So this is hard. This is not an easy life to physically get my skates on and go teach
Yeah.
every day. But
Mhm.
it has forced me to be in better physical shape, and I think it's a healthier life.
Well,
And I
I've been doing computer work the last couple of years, so I have very little use of my voice at all. When I was in mortgage and I was on the phone all the time, or just in meetings, I was talking a lot. So I've noticed how easy it is to lose the power of your voice, how quickly your vocal cords will get tired if you don't work them regularly. So having something where you use your voice other than just casual conversation, that's really a good thing because it goes quick.
well, I'm on the ice every day, and this is push, push,
Yeah. But
push harder.
but does those drastic temperature changes affect you? I mean, obviously you're not going to be on the ice and then go to a gig, but does that like how does that impact you?
It has happened. Yeah, it's very, very cold, and my extremities, my toes, and my fingers, are very, very cold, and it takes me a while to warm up
Mhm.
physically.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think it affects my voice quite as much. I'm
Mhm.
not sure. I'll have to look at that. I'm not sure if it does. But definitely, my hair gets dry.
Right. Yeah.
You're constantly, fumes from the Zamboni, which is the machine that cleans the ice.
Hmm.
It's very, very dry. So that probably does have some effect. I drink a lot of water. I drink a lot
Oh
of
yeah.
poor cucumber water. That's my go-to.
Mm,
Yeah. And
nice.
bananas, lots of bananas.
Really?
Yeah, I do. Bananas help with bruising. You fall a lot, and bananas actually supposedly have some healing property for bruising.
Which
I
is interesting because bananas themselves bruise very easily.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. They do. But I always have a stockpile of bananas here, and because I don't I not only coach, I also compete. I still compete in the
Yeah.
adult world of figure skating. And I went to
Mhm.
nationals this year, and
Yay.
yes, I did. I did. I did very well. I did very well. And yeah, goals. Just have to have goals. You know.
Okay, so now you're just killing it. I mean, you're knocking it out of the park with everything you do. What what do you want to accomplish? Like what's the next big goal for you?
Mm. Well, I want to get an album of my original songs together. I have spent my entire life writing, performing other people's
Right.
material.
Hmm.
Honored to sing it. I feel like I'm at the point now where I need to take my life experiences, put those into song, and have my own testimony about how I see the world, you know, And hopefully that will inspire other people and resonate on some level. That is my immediate goal.
That is an excellent goal. And if you need a co-writer to write your solo penned album, let me know.
I love collaboration. Honestly, I think collaborations as a general rule are better than songs that you just take on by yourself. And every song, the exception of Storyteller, has been with a collaborator. Well, this story is like channeled. I don't know. That just
Well, and that's good. That's healthy though, but it also challenged you to do something that you hadn't done yet, which is great.
It did. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this on my own. I want to see if I can do it.
Do you plan on working with a producer?
Well, Stefan is a producer.
Okay.
He's a musical producer. Absolutely. He's fantastic.
Okay.
He's so popular. He's so in demand. It's hard to get time with him. And I get a little frustrated because I would like us to be producing more stuff.
Right.
So I just have to keep writing on my own and grab him when I can. I get off the ice at Bellevue at 6 p.m. and race to Fairview and say, give me some time. We're going to.
Okay, so what happened here is unfortunately my internet went out. This seems to be happening fairly regularly since I moved to Tulsa. Usually it's overnight though and not in the middle of the afternoon. So unfortunately that happened and now it's trying to convert the meeting, which will tie the system up for a while. But I think we ended on a good note. What I am going to do, and I asked Laura for permission to do this before, is instead of doing my normal outro, I'm going to give you a little bit of her new single, Storyteller. Thank you so much, Laura, for coming on the show. Always amazing to talk to you. I always have such a good time. I'm already looking forward to your next visit. Take care. You guys have a wonderful day. We'll be back next week. In the meantime, tomorrow, another episode of Deep Purple Smoke on the podcast. On the same channel you get this podcast. We'll see you guys. Stay tuned for the song. Cheers.
Screened-in porch and bourbon-soaked memories. Words fly, another night down.